Hi everyone, this is Kathlyn Hinesley with Exploring Dimensions for All. And this is a little fun, this next subject. It might seem a little bit scary, but I think I've discovered a way to tell if you might be being subjected to mind control. Now these days that is a big political issue, and I'm not going to make this a political channel, but I certainly believe that it's possible, and I have my own thoughts on that. I make plenty of YouTube posts about what I think politically, but I don't want to drive people away if they don't, agree with my politics. This is not a political channel at all. In any case, an interesting thing happened to me last week, and I learned something. I was in Bangkok. Now I'm back home in Siem Reap, Cambodia. And when I was in Bangkok, an Indian man approached me and he said he was a palm reader. And so I was interested in that. I've had people read my palm before, but I don't really remember much about it. And I thought, well, this will be interesting. What's a little money? Well, he looked at my palm and then wanted money, and I gave him money. And then he kind of kept going. He said, think of a number. And so he wrote a number down, and then he said, think of a number. And right away I thought of 7, so I said 7, and he opened up the piece of paper, and it was a 7. And at first I was really shocked and amazed by that. And then he told me a little bit, and he wanted money, and he told me a little bit about my palm again, and then he went and he wrote down something on his paper, and he crumpled it up, and he said, think of a color. And immediately I thought of blue, and I said blue. And he wanted money, and it was going to keep going on and on. Like he was going to go on and on. He's like, I can tell you your mother's name, and I can tell you, your birth date and all of these things. And I said, you know what? Those are different skills. I just wanted to have my palm read, and I know a lot about psychic skills, and those are different skills. And then I went, oh, and I suddenly had the recognition that he had the skill of, it's called remote influencing. It's where you put a thought into someone else's mind. I have taken some remote viewing classes, and I took one class that involved remote influencing, and it was for the purposes of healthcare. I've chosen not to do that because I feel a little uncomfortable engaging in remote influencing. The people that want to do that for positive purposes, that's fine, but I don't feel really comfortable influencing anybody's mind for any purpose. But I know that it's possible because I learned how it can be done. And then it ended up kind of being worth the money I gave him because I learned what it feels like to have your mind influenced. So actually, when I felt that 7, it was very flat. It was like, you know how when you're normally thinking of something, it's kind of like a flow and your mind is searching. It's kind of going around and back and forth. It's picking up data until you settle on something. And once you settle on something, you give an answer. Well, there was no settling on anything. It was as though someone had shown me a card, that was very flat. I didn't see a card, but I felt a number really flat, like right in front of my consciousness. And then when it was the color, what was interesting is he hadn't written the color down yet. He said, think of a color, and he was already projecting blue. And then I got the blue. And it was funny because his timing was a little bit off, because by the time he handed me the paper, I was about ready to go to aquamarine or some other color because my mind had started searching again. But I went with the original thing because it felt stronger. So I said blue. So what this man, I think he was trained, he had like a turban on his head, and, Sikhs wear those, and I don't, there's no problem with me in that religion or anything like that. He may or may not actually have subscribed to that religion. He might have just been wearing it to kind of seem more wise or something. I'm not sure what he was doing in particular, but he was using a psychic skill clearly to get people to give him money. And anyhow, in that case, the scent thoughts felt flat. Okay, so now what I've done to what I've been able to do over the past couple of years is really recognize a lot about my own thoughts and what they feel like. So, and I want to give you some of that information. I've done a lot of training in remote viewing. I've studied controlled remote viewing and associative remote viewing, and I've studied a little bit of scientific remote viewing. And these are systems for being able to experience information across time and space. They can be a little bit complicated when you first learn them, but what it does is it helps to train the mind to recognize sensations and the difference between inputs and thinking. So I think I know a lot more about the difference between information that's coming in from an outside source, what's generated by my brain, kind of what an emotion feels like, and I just want to give you guys some of that information. So what you can do if you want to be able to protect yourself against projected thoughts, and I do think that there's been some experimentation with the sending of those electronically. I think that that's happening. I mean, that's what I think. I'm not going to blame a particular government or a particular company or a particular medium, but I feel intuitively like that is happening. And I think that I've caught that happening on a couple of occasions to me. So anyhow, the first thing is to get in touch with your own thoughts. So when you can't decide what to do, feel what that feels like. Feel if it feels, is it a swaying motion? Is it a jittery motion? Put an adjective to that feeling. Jittery, sparkly, back and forth, okay? And then when you come to a decision, put an adjective onto that. Does that feel solid? Does it feel hard? Does it feel squarish? Does it feel flowing? What does that feel like to you when you come to a decision? And then when you feel like something intuitively is coming in, like, oh, I don't think I should go around that corner, or I really think I should call my friend. Right after that comes in, see if you can remember what it felt like when it came in, because that was your intuition. When I have psychic impressions, it feels like flowing water coming in through the top of my head. Some thoughts, like creative thoughts, where I feel like I'm being almost like given a poem or something. I guess if you're a musician, it would come in as musical notes. So when I'm involved in creativity, it does feel like it's coming from outside. It's not the same as a psychic impression, but there feels like there's a flow to it. And it feels a bit centered in my brain area. When I have a feeling, sometimes like an emotion, sometimes the feelings and the emotions can affect different parts of my body, like my heart, my stomach, they can be in different parts of my head that I feel the emotion. So when you feel angry, spend a moment to feel what your body feels like and think about the thought you just had before you felt that. And as you become aware of what your own thinking feels like, you can then start to think about what other people's influences feel like. So if you go and see a family member and they tell you what you should really do about a particular problem, but you're kind of fighting it, like, oh, I don't know if that's right. Then when you think about what they think you should do, think about what that feels like. That's not a scent thought, but that's another kind of thinking, right? So when you get all these kind of like feelings, like flowing, scatter pattern, up and down, rhythmic, might have a shape or a textural quality to the thought, it'll be so much easier to recognize scent thoughts. So there have been a couple of occasions in which I have felt as though my normal thinking was hijacked. In one case, I'm very anti-war, and in one case, in almost all situations, I'm very anti-war. That's just how I am. I know a lot of people are different than that. There must be circumstances in which it is necessary, and I don't want to discuss those or even worry about them. But anyway, that's my normal personality, okay? So when I had already decided, for example, how I felt about the 2003 invasion of Iraq. I didn't agree with it, right? That was my feeling. And I was watching the news, and I felt like, as I was watching the news, it was really kind of interesting. It was like the motion of my thinking started to change, the actual motion of it. And I started to agree with the war. And I pretty much turned the TV off because I went, okay, whatever's going on here, it's not my thinking. It's like not normally my thinking. And then a few weeks ago, it was as though I was listening to, it was like interests or concerns that I never normally would have, like as part of my personality, were kind of coming in a flow that was not part of my normal rhythm of thinking. And I don't know how to describe it because I can't remember what I was thinking about. I only remember, wait a minute, this is not how I think. Like, this is not my normal mode of thinking. Now, our ways of thinking always change as we grow and develop and spiritually aspire. We begin to take on different frequencies of thought, and that's normal and that's good. And so you should allow that, of course, but you'll see what I mean if you start paying attention to how different thoughts feel. It'll start feeling really clear. I have watched a few broadcasts. Sorry about that, I just bumped my camera. I've watched a few broadcasts about people being worried about mind control and intrusive thoughts. And I already did get a little political. I'm sorry. I'm trying not to. But in any case, you know, people have their own opinions about things. So anyhow, if this is of concern to you in any way, I hope this video has been helpful. And please like, share, and subscribe to my video if you found this helpful. I'm trying to grow my channel. Thanks so much for listening, and have a great day.